Hello. Hello.
Hi.
Good evening, everyone. We're still waiting for more persons to join us.
Hello. 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 Can somebody hear me?
Yeah, Dr. Godwin, yeah, I can hear you.
Hello. Hello.
Hello, Dr. Godwin, I can hear you.
We can hear you clearly.
Oh,
We can
okay,
hear you,
so
sir.
I wasn't hearing anybody. That's why okay.
Okay.
Can you see my slide?
Yes, we can see your screen, even though it's not on slideshow yet.
Okay, okay. Can you see now?
Yes, it's on slideshow now.
Okay, okay, great, great. All right, let me try and put, my screen is not very clear. I don't know why it's giving me some issues here, but you can see clearly my slides now.
Yes, sir. Your slides is clear. Yes, sir.
Is my video on?
Yes, sir. Your video is on too.
Okay, am I talking to Didi?
Yes, sir.
Okay.
But everyone can hear you though.
Nobody can hear me. Okay.
We can hear you. We can hear you.
I want to start scrolling down. Is it changing?
Yes, it is.
It's changing, isn't it also?
Yes, it is.
Okay, because I did, I kind of did, I think I have to leave it here because I don't know what's wrong with this thing here. There are some things I want to go off. Okay. Okay, let me bring it down. Beautiful. Take this off. Okay. I am set. You can hear me very clearly, is it also?
Yes, sir, we can hear you.
Okay, what am I to do now? Madam Moderator.
Okay, okay, we are 15. I don't know. We may still give some time for others to join before we start. It's
Okay.
9:05 p.m.
Okay, you say they cannot hear me, Abby?
No, we are hearing you, sir.
No, I thought you are the only one hearing me.
No, please, can we hear him? Could we respond, please?
We all can hear clearly.
Oh, Maoga, I greet you, sir.
I can hear you, Dr. Pauline.
Oh, Choma.
Yeah.
I can hear you very well, sir. I can hear you, sir.
Okay, thank you very much. I just wanted to be sure.
Okay, while we wait for others to join us, let me briefly welcome each and every one of us to tonight's presentation. Okay. I can see a lot of persons. Pharmacist Isioma Edake, Chioma Igwe, Cristiano Olani, Abdul Mumuni. I hope I didn't murder your name, sir. Forgive
No
me.
problem, you try.
Sipan National
No
Host,
mother,
welcome. Ekwere Usoro, welcome. Hassan Ayodele, Hawa Farouk, Osita Obu, Rakiat Mohammed, Unyime Eshiet, Yetunde Aromi Wura, Favor Alozie. We see you, we welcome you. At some point, I won't be able to call out the names like this because of time, but while we are waiting for others to join, that's why I'm recognizing us individually. You all are welcome to tonight's presentation. I mean, this presentation wouldn't hold without you. Welcome, everyone. Welcome. So, like, what time do we kick off? It's 9:07 now. Anybody can answer. When do you think we should kickstart, regardless of the number of persons in the room?
No national ESCO that has come online.
I think 10 minutes past 9 is all right.
Okay, if we are going with 10 minutes past 9, that means we have like 2 minutes plus left.
Yes, yes.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Well, I believe we would have some national presence in due time. I believe we would.
We have to hear already.
Let us. Okay, the CPAN national host.
Yes, and myself.
Yes. Okay, sir. Thank you very much, sir. Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. Okay.
Didi.
Yes, boss.
It's my video clear. My face looks a bit very foggy.
We can see your handsome face, sir. Don't be worried.
Okay, it's clear.
Yes, it's clear.
Okay.
Dr. Odek, I think we can start.
Okay, sir. Okay, without further waste of our time, this is the CPAN weekly meeting, which we usually hold every Friday night, but tonight is a special one because this is being hosted by the Nephrology Pharmacists Association, okay? Okay, yeah, we are no longer allowed to use Association of Nigeria. So Nephrology Pharmacists Specialty, okay? Part of CPAN. So briefly, I'll just want to update us on this specialty group. This specialty group is focused on the kidneys, but not just the kidneys, but everything that happens with the kidneys in the center of it. That's the nephron. And we know the kidney is a vital organ in the system. So at some point, there would be some intertwining between endocrinology and the rest of it. But for now, we are focusing on the foundational lessons about the renal system. Okay, we also have the steering committee for this specialty group. I'm going to quickly mention the names of the members of the steering committee. Just give me a minute. Okay. We have the Nephron steering committee officers. Our national coordinator is Dr. Godwin Polycarp. He's the one that is also presenting tonight. We have our first deputy coordinator, Dr. Solomon Wafuru. We have our second deputy coordinator, Dr. Oyawole Modupe. We have the national secretary, Dr. Chinwe Udeka, my humble self. We have the assistant national secretary, Famaliu Fulaila. We have the national financial secretary, Fam Saidu Yabagi. We have the national treasurer, Fam Ogonna Ezechuku. We have exams and records officer, Fam Obo Okokon Ita. We have the national public relations officer, Dr. Timipre Okerogene Agogo. We have the national ICT officer 1, Fam Tayanwa Stephen. We have the ICT officer 2, Fam Ayu Olaniye. We have the research and development officer, Fam Alex Akinlola. Okay, we are very much functional. We also have our Facebook handle. We have our email, official email address. We are doing well, basically, if you ask me. Okay, so without wasting much of our time, I would be calling on our presenter for tonight in the person of Dr. Godwin Polycarp Ebe. He's a lecturer with the Department of Clinical Pharmacy and Biopharmacy, University of Uyo. He's a fellow of the West African Postgraduate College of Pharmacy, a project coordinator and consultant to ProHealth International. And of course, he's one of the desk officers and national coordinator, nephrology pharmacists of Nigeria, Nephron, the steering committee. So please, with a round of applause, could we make welcome our presenter for tonight, Dr. Godwin Polycarp Ebe. I'm handing the mic over to you now. Thank you very much, sir.
Thank you very much, the moderator. I want to recognize, I know she has recognized everybody, the National Health School. I know my teacher, Dr. Abdul Momoni Isa is here. My distinguished colleagues all over the world that are here, and I will be listening to this presentation, which we have tagged renal biomechanics, understanding the architecture and functions of the renal system. The much ado about this is just a foundational thing. We have taken down to break down the renal system into spare parts, just like you have a vehicle, you want to understand the make of the vehicle, you break them down into bits and look at them macro, not micro, macroscopically at their part to appreciate the system, to love to look at the system. Because since it is a new area in pharmacy, which we actually want to grow into, we need to understand the anatomy, physiology, and the mechanical aspects of the renal system, because there's a lot of little things that we really need to tubular reabsorption, tubular secretion, glomerular filtration, all those things. How does this thing work? So this presentation is an attempt for us to break it down into as simple as possible. So bear with me, even if you have a lot of knowledge about the renal system, you've done so much, you indulge us to go as basic as possible, as simple as possible. Have patience with us, and in no time we'll be done with this presentation. Actually, we prepared this as for a refresher course in the group particularly, so that we use and start. But because of exigencies, we couldn't actually put this through. So even though we are going to present it, we will still represent it maybe at another time so that with time we begin to get used to the whole thing. So the kidney, as you can see, this is a human, and you can see where the kidney lies. It's almost at the back of the human body. It's slated almost adjacent. The two kidneys almost adjacent to excuse me. Okay, I wanted to get my pointer. Okay, so almost the adjacent side of the back. Okay, sorry about that. So kidneys, what are they? As you can see, I've pointed at the kidney. Those are what, at times we think that the kidney is at the front. It's mostly at the back. And this is how the kidney looks like. As you can see, they are like beans shaped. And the height is about 11 centimeters, while the width is about 6 centimeters. The breadth is about 4 centimeters. And it weighs between 150 to 170 grams. That's how our kidney, depending on the musculature, or depending on the build of the person. Now, what does the kidney do? It makes urine and purifies blood. It makes urine and purifies blood. The kidney and the urinary system, there is an interjection between the kidney and the urinary system, because the aspect of purifying blood and making urine, there should be an outlet where the product of urine, that's the urine, flows out, which is the urinary system. So that most often than not, you do not talk about the kidney without actually mentioning the urinary system. Though we have specialists, urologists, groups, pharmacy specialty groups that are looking at the urinary system and other aspect of that side. But at times, due to the anatomical arrangement of the kidney and the urinary system, you tend to have at times infection rising from the urinary system into the kidney. You call it ascending infection, or you also have infection from the kidney coming down into the urinary system. You call that descending infection. So we have as the urinary system having the kidney there. We have the blood supply, which are the renal arteries and the renal vein, the ureter, urinary bladder, and the urethra, the urinary system or tract. We have there the kidney, that is the tissue part, and we have the drainage part. You see the drainage part here, which links up into the bladder. Now, this is when you cut the kidney into, you slice it vertically, you would see how the kidney looks like. Of course, I've told you this is the renal artery, and the blue aspect here is the renal vein. Now, these are the two blood vessels that services the kidney. Now, there are thousands of filters around, though I'm going to get to that point. There are thousands of filters within the kidney. And then, what do the kidney do? We want to ask ourselves, what does the kidney actually do? These are what the kidneys do. The regulation of water, electrolyte balance, and the pH. Number 2, removal of waste from the blood and excretion of urine. Number 3, secretion of hormones. At times, you will be surprised that the The kidney is also an endocrine gland. It produces erythropoietin, renin, and vitamin D. As we go along, you will know the role for which these hormones actually play. And also you now understand the reason why when there is any level of kidney damage or kidney malfunction or kidney insufficiency, then you begin to see why certain tissues within the system begins to suffer, like the erythropoietic tissue, like the blood vessels begins to have problem, then the bone marrow also begins to have problem. Now, as we go on, the kidney remove waste product from the body, as I already said. They also remove excess fluid from the body. They remove excess fluid from the body through the urinary system, as we said, maintaining their right, as I said, they maintain the right amount of water in the body. Kidneys balance the minerals and chemicals in our body. It's just like you have a scale. We have minerals like elemental minerals like potassium, sodium, chlorine, magnesium. They balance it. And also chemicals such as the bicarbonates. The bicarbonate exchange system within the nephrons. When we get to that point, we will look at it macroscopically and also microscopically to actually. So they provide that balance. And that's why if there is a problem with the kidney, we tend to have imbalances in electrolyte. And this can actually affect the metabolic balances within the system. It could actually even affect the central nervous system. That's why at times where kidneys patient begin to go into some kind of encephalopathies. They begin to have certain level of coma depending on the degree of malfunction of the kidney. So the kidney also controls blood pressure via the renin. The renin, as you've heard, I've said that is a hormone that is produced in the kidney. When there is a condition of low blood pressure within the system, the kidney is triggered to produce renin, and renin will now cause angiotensinogen to be converted to angiotensin 1. Angiotensin 1 now be converted to angiotensin 2. And angiotensin 2 becomes a very high potent vasoconstrictor that constrict the arterioles within the renal system, which will now tend to lead to vascular resistance that can bring about vascular increase in blood pressure. That is where the relationship lies. So as I said, renin is an enzyme released by the kidney in response to a drop in blood pressure. Renin catalyzes the production of angiotensin, a hormone that causes arterioles to constrict, raising blood pressure. And it also causes water retention and sodium reabsorption. So the kidney also helps to produce red blood cells. As I said before, erythropoietin is actually produced in the kidney. And where there is a damage to the kidney, there is a disease in the kidney, production of erythropoietin is reduced. And that's why at times you see when patients that are on dialysis, they tend to give them exogenous forms of erythropoietin. They inject them because the kidney is not working well. So they have to have optimal level of blood in their system. Most often than not, before you do dialysis, depending on the number of people that go for dialysis like 3 times a week, you tend to do your PCV or hemoglobin check every week. So, I mean, at least every 2 weeks, so that they check for the level of blood that you have. The reasons are that already the erythropoietin in the system is very low because the kidney is no longer producing erythropoietin. As I said, just to explain further, erythropoietin is a second response to low blood pressure, and is a second response to low blood pressure is the release of erythropoietin, another hormone, and it travels to the bone marrow and stimulate the production of new blood cells. So kidney, another function of the kidney, it helps maintain healthy bones. How? The kidney produces vitamin D, and vitamin D is an essential supplement or cofactor in the production of healthy bones. So that's why at times when you see kidney patients, they tend to have brittle bones. They complain of a lot of bone issue. At times, calcium supplements are actually given to them as part of supplement to help them, most especially patients that are on dialysis, either frank or conservative dialysis. So as you can see, we're just trying to show us for good teeth. Look at the spinal cord. You all need that for that. So I write here, I have here, did you know that every minute 1,200 mils of blood enters both kidney? That's about 20% of the total blood pumped into the heart. Do you also know that in one day, 1,700 liters of blood is purified by the both kidneys? And if you quantify that, that will give you about 3,592.7 pints of blood. If you look at a pint of blood is like a sachet of water, you have that about 3,592 of that. That is the quantity of blood that is being purified in the kidney. That means the kidney works every day. The kidney works throughout the lifetime, and that is why it's prone to danger. It's prone to being damaged, and that is why we have to protect our kidney because of the enormous function there. You also know that adults have 7 to 8 liters of blood in the body. That's about 14 to 16 pints of blood. And do you also know that the kidney filters 400 times per day? 400 times per day. Now, the nephron from both kidneys are placed horizontally, end to end. And the nephrons, if you remove the nephrons and extend it like a straight line, they are about, the nephron in the human system is 16 kilometers in length. Remove all of the nephrons and line it. And we all know that the length of a football field is about 400 meters. You could imagine what the number of football fields that you will have in 16 kilometers is quite long, which translates to about 9.95 miles of nephron that is within the body. You can imagine how long our nephron is. So your body can work normally with one kidney. Yes, that's why at times when there is kidney problem, the nephrologist will look at the excess and see whether it's both kidney that is being damaged. If it is one that is being damaged, actually they can remove that one and you still function very well. And that is why you find out that when you go for kidney donation, people could actually donate their kidney if appropriate tests have been done and it's found out that one of their kidneys is quite healthy. You can donate one and still live as long as healthy as possible. So one can actually live with one kidney. So when kidney don't work, when kidneys don't work well, what happens? Early kidney disease has no sign. You see, at times the kidney will be so bad and damaged, it will not show any sign. It's just like the liver also. Until it is about 40 to 20 to 30% remaining of the normal function, that begins to show you signs of pedal edema, malaise, weakness, anemia, and the rest. So it's quite necessary that once one has to go for kidney check, where one begins to get to maybe up to the age, up to the age, well, not really up to the age, because we've actually been seeing kidney diseases in infants, kidney diseases in pediatrics, kidney disease in young adults. They have been there. So you know, from time to time, it's appropriate. One looks at this kidney to actually check, because at times one actually do not know environmental factor, food factors, drug factors could actually has its impact on the kidney, because everything we take exogenously into our system, they tend to be refined and they and filtered through the kidney. So how do we know whether a kidney is working or not? We know through blood and urine tests. Of course, the blood test will look at the electrolyte. They look at nitrogenous compounds such as urea, and you also look at the creatinine. You do a test like the EUCR, that's what they call it. Electrolyte, urea, creatinine. You look at their levels. You understand? Are the electrolyte well balanced? You look at the urea level. Is the urea level very high? Because if the urea level high, there is what we call uremic encephalopathy, which at times can send patients into coma. Before you know it, it becomes a psychiatric problem. That patient is unable to actually have proper cognition. At times you take that patient to dialysis, and the dialysis is not able to return the person to the optimal cognitive ability, return the person to optimal cognitive ability. So it can be that serious. So blood tests actually does that, and also urine tests, because of course, you will find out that there are certain compounds that are not filtered from the, that are filtered in the urine. Especially, I mean, they are not filtered in the urine. When you begin to see blood in the urine, you begin to see protein in the urine, that means there is a problem. There is a damage in the kidney, because proteins are large molecular masses. They cannot pass through the spaces within the nephron. So you find out that when you begin to see, that means you begin to question there is some level of damage, or there is some level of disease, because like a condition of acute glomerulonephritis at times can cause a presence of protein within the urine, but it's not frank. When you treat it, maybe it's of bacterial origin. It can go and the kidney returns to normal, depending on its chronicity. Sorry. So when the kidney functions less than 10% of normal, we are talking about end-stage kidney diseases. When the kidney function less than 10, so you find out, I said before that the kidney doesn't show sign until it has gotten to about 30 to 20% of its capacity begins to show sign. That means between that 20 to 30%, if it starts showing sign and you now know that, you already know that the person is close to end-stage kidney disease. So is that really, we need to really be detailed about checking it. Kidney no longer function at all. When our kidney no longer function, you begin to ask for dialysis. You begin to ask for transplant. What dialysis actually does is to help do what the kidney would have done inside the person. The dialysis machine will take out the blood from the human, filters it, and send it back. And of course, it's quite a procedure, and it lasts between 3 to 4 hours, of the person lying down in one place. At times, if people who have the dialysis machine in their house, they could actually sleep and do the dialysis, and the thing filters, sends it back, and they go. But it's a medical procedure that has to be carefully done in a very sterile environment, because human blood is being taken out and returned. Of course, the predisposition of danger to infection is always there. So when kidneys no longer function at all, of course, we are looking at dialysis and transplantation. So dialysis removes waste product and unwanted water in the body. As you can see, if you've ever entered the dialysis unit, the patient lies down, and this is the dialysis machine, as you can see. And there you see the blood going in and then coming out. We call this one hemodialysis, because you take the blood in and take the. For peritoneal dialysis, the dialysis, what actually helps in their, the exchange, removal of the waste product is injected into the peritoneal cavity of the person. Then after the absorption of the waste product is done, it is sucked out from the peritoneal cavity of the person back into an empty container outside the human. As you can see, this is hemodialysis, where they insert kind of like into two of the vein and the artery here. The blood comes out. Normally, the blood is sucked under suction, but it's gradually sucked by these machines. At times, it could actually make the patient a bit drowsy, a bit, lose cognition a bit. Yes, because it's blood that is going out of the patient. You understand? But it's a procedure. Over time, they've been trying to work on it so that it becomes, easy for people to do it. And this is peritoneal dialysis. As you can see, this is what you call the diacylate. It's pumped into the peritoneal cavity, and after a while, maybe 30 minutes to 1 hour, it is sucked into a container down here. It's quite different from the hemodialysis. Of course, we talk about kidney transplants, where the kidney is not functioning at all, no percentage. Then you talk about transplant. Of course, we've heard about online what has happened, where people actually want to go for that. Of course, they will check for compatibility so that there won't be organ rejection. Of course, when there's proper transplant, the patient goes back, lives normal life. Of course, you'll be on certain drugs to actually help for immune suppression so that the body antibodies do not attack the organs that are taken from. Of course, we have the two types of transplant, one from a living donor and another one from a dead donor. There are people who died and they give out their kidney for humanitarian purposes. That they write as their will. If they die, okay, my kidney, my heart should go to this, to go to this. They do it. At times they do it here in Nigeria, but it's quite common over there in the Western countries. So that's from donation from a deceased donor, which is good. But research has actually shown that donation from live donor kidneys, they work better, and they are quite good and better. But where you don't have it, of course, there is scarcity of kidney donation all over the world. We are all aware of that. And we should also know that the old damaged kidney are not usually removed during transplant. They don't cut it and throw it away. What they do is that, as you can see, the red, they superimpose it and reconnect it to the ureter. See, this is the old, and you can see the red. And I just want to show what happens. They just superimpose it on it, and the old kidney still remains there. You understand? Because it's part of the human body. So, I haven't looked at like kind of architecture. Let's look briefly at the anatomy of the mammalian kidney. Of course, we know we have the renal cortex, the renal medulla. We can know that in our modern biology, renal pelvis, and the nephron, which we will look at a bit in details, as you can see. And if you look at the kidney X-ray, I was trying to get an X-ray of the kidney in association with organs in the body. You can see that it's being shaped, located between the peritoneum and the back muscles. You see, the back muscles. You feel it when they do transplant is from the back. The surgeons, they cut from the back to actually assess the kidney. They are held in place by connective tissue and enclosed in an adipose tissue and protected by the ribs. You can see God so created the kidney, and there was a burglary proof around the kidney, just on a lighter note. Let's look at the external structures and internal structures. external structures are the renal capsule, renal fascia, and the renal hilum. Internal structures, the renal cortex, the renal medulla, and the pelvis, which we have shown you diagrammatically. For the external, the renal capsule consists that the renal capsule that houses the kidney surrounds by a mass of fat, while the renal fascia is tough fibrous tissue surrounding kidney capsule and adipose tissue. You can see I was trying to bring up something a bit. And the renal hilum in indentation that gives the kidney its bean shape. It's like a beans. Kidney is like a beans. I've just shown us a live kidney photograph. You can look down here, you can see. Excuse me. So the internal organ, the internal kidney, the renal cortex, outer layer that has the nephron. The renal medulla, internal layer, triangular looking, while the renal pelvis, collecting area in center, that is the beginning of the ureter. Functions of the kidney, as I said before: water balance, electrolyte balance, plasma volume, acid-base balance, osmolarity balance, excretion, and hormone secretion. Then let's look at three basic renal processes. We have the glomerular filtration, which is filtering of blood into the tubules from the primitive urine. We have tubular reabsorption, which is absorption of substances needed by the body from the tubules into the blood. Now, what it means is that as the urine goes into the tubules, some substances are taken out from the urine and returned back into the blood. You understand? They return back because the body needs it. You understand? Because if it goes like that, the body becomes deficient of it. Then tubular secretion is a secretion of substances to be eliminated, from the body into the tubules, into the blood. Secretion of substances to be eliminated from the body into the tubules from the blood. From the blood, it is secreted into the tubules and then is taken away from blood. Excuse me. All right. Okay, let's look at the architecture of the nephron. This is a beautiful nephron that we have here: the glomerulus, the proximal tubule, loop of Henle, and the distal tubules. Glomerulus, which is this. The glomerulus are the Bowman capsules there, the glomerulus. Then we have the proximal tubule, which is the tube immediately leaving the Bowman capsule. Then we have the loop of Henle, something like a U-turn down here. Is encapsulated by capillaries to help for reabsorption, and then the distal tubules that goes into the collecting ducts. Now, the glomerulus, this is the only place in the system where the blood is actually filtered. This is the only place where the blood is actually filtered. Blood pressure is used to push plasma through capillary walls into the Bowman capsule. See, it's the blood pressure that is why in the management of kidney diseases, though you can be managing high blood pressure, at times you do not reduce the blood pressure to its barest minimum, because you actually still need high blood pressure to actually push blood in the kidney. And even during dialysis, normally they will advise the patient not to take antihypertensive when coming for dialysis. because as the blood is taken out of the person, ordinarily the blood pressure goes down because of the removal of blood in the system. So blood pressure actually helps for filtration process, because that is what is like a hydrostatic force that pushes the blood against a resistance that has a mesh like wall, which is the glomerulus. And so it pushes so that filtration could actually take place. Filtration, water, nutrient, and waste are filtered from glomerulus capillaries into the Bowman capsules of the nephron. So glomerular filtration is the first step in urine formation. 180 liters per day is filtered. Entire plasma volume filter is about 65 times a day, and proteins are not filtered. I repeat, proteins are not filtered. That's why whenever we find proteins in the urine, we begin to question some level of kidney damage. When it becomes frank, of course, definitely you need to do a kidney function test. It could be bacterial inogery, it could be anything. But we know that proteins are not filtered through the glomerulus. Now, let us briefly explain that basic renal process of filtration. As you can see, the blood comes from the afferent arterioles, comes into the glomerulus, and get filtered, comes down. There is tubular, this TR is tubular reabsorption. There is tubular absorption, and the blood now goes into the afferent arterioles, then comes into the peritubular capillaries. The peritibular capillaries are these ones here. Sorry, I'm taking you back. These are these capillaries that almost, that goes around the loop of Henle. So those are the peritubular capillaries. So we go back to this place. So GF is the glomerular filtration. It comes down here. Just to break it down into the macro molecular level, we say forces involved in filtration. What are the forces actually involved in filtration? We have a positive force. I call it the positive force. That is the glomerular filtration blood pressure. You see the blood pressure from the heart, from the aorta, blood is pumped into the general system. That same force, as it's coming, it gets into the capillary, glomerulus capillaries, and pushes the blood there. Now, there is a negative pressure, opposing pressure. We call it the plasma colloid osmotic pressure. The plasma has its own concentration and its own concentration. So it will present an osmotic gradient. An osmotic gradient where substances at times may diffuse or may not diffuse depending on where the concentration gradient is there. So that osmotic pressure of the colloid, they tend to form a resistance, because if the osmotic pressure out in the Bowman capsule is a kind of higher than the one that is within the capillary, the glomerular capillary, you tend to have that there is a resistance to this glomerular filtration pressure, and that is one. Now, it's the plasma colloid osmotic pressure is not as high as the glomerular capillary blood pressure. For the glomerular capillary blood pressure, it's about 55 horsepower. While for the plasma colloid osmotic pressure is about 30. Now, the Bowman capsule hydrostatic pressure. The Bowman capsule hydrostatic pressure. Of course, the Bowman capsule has its own pores for which these substances will pass, and they form a hydrostatic pressure, and is about 15. So if you add 15 to 30, it becomes 45. So if you minus 55 from 45, it gives you a net filtration pressure of 10, which is the force that can bring the waste product out. At any point where the negative forces are higher than the capillary, glomerular capillary blood pressure, filtration will not take place. So, I want to connect the brain, the hypothalamus with the nephron, and also the mechanism of tubular reabsorption, water absorption is also affected. Is also affected by what we call the antidiuretic hormone, which is also called the vasopressin. If you look at number 1 here, heat causes water losses and dehydration. Receptor in the hypothalamus detect that the low water content of the blood and signal the posterior pituitary. The posterior pituitary releases antidiuretic hormone into the bloodstream, and antidiuretic hormone increases permeability of the distal tubules and the collecting duct, allowing more water to be reabsorbed into the blood. And, excuse me, and water is retained in the body and concentrated urine is passed out. So antidiuretic hormone helps for water reabsorption so that concentrated urine is passed. But when there is a problem in the release of the antidiuretic hormone, that's where we have dilute urine that is being released, which is a condition where we call diabetic insipidus. So you can relate, at times you see people passing out high quantity of urine that are very dilute. They will begin to question, it looks like you have diabetes mellitus, because there is polyuria. You understand? So, but it's at times it is this condition where there is a deficiency of the antidiuretic hormone, which actually cause reabsorption of water. So when there is no reabsorption of water, definitely you have a dilute urine. So it plays also a part within the nephron with antidiuretic hormone, because its effect is on the distal tubules and the collecting duct. Sorry. So let us look at what happens at the proximal tubule. Nutrients are moved out of the tubules by active transport. You can see here that nutrients are removed, salt are also removed from the urine. Water is also removed. That is what you call tubular reabsorption from the distal tubule. All this will also cause it's also water follows the nutrient by osmosis. Because when the salt is removed, definitely within the extracellular space around outside the tubules, you have high concentration. So you find out that water will begin to follow the salt out, so that you still have a concentrated urine within. So what happens at the loop of Henle? Tissues around the loop of Henle is salty. Why is it salty? Because you can see the blue arrows here is osmosis. Water comes out because the tissues around here are salty. So water begins to move. Apart from the effect of the antidiuretic hormones, water also moves through osmosis because the tissue around there are salty. Now, from active transport and diffusion of sodium chloride, you understand? There is also movement of sodium chloride from within the tubules. They also go out. So water will actually follow them. There is also active transport, which at times may go against concentration gradient. The salty condition allows water to diffuse out of the loop of Henle. Now, what happens at the distal tubule? Tubular secretion. There's also secretion of water into the surrounding tissue. As I've said before, water follows also sodium chloride goes out also into the this. Then also drugs are secreted. Drugs within the tissues are secreted. Ions are also secreted into the urine. You see here potassium, hydrogen ion, and ammonia is secreted. Active transfer is used to move more nutrients out of the concentrated urine. Some ions, drugs, and toxins are actively pumped into the, you can see some ions here, potassium ion, hydrogen ion, ammonia, actually pump, some toxins are pumped into, say, through the process of active transport. Excuse me. All right. At the collecting dot, more water leaves the tube by osmosis, since the tube is surrounded by salty tissue. Some urea leaves by diffusion and may be cycled, excuse me, and may be cycled through the system. You understand? Urea also leaves and may be cycled into the system. Excuse me. So you can now appreciate this, the holistic view of what actually happened when you look at it right from number one, here the glomerular, the glomerulus, the bonal capsule, the proximal tubules, the loop of Henle, the distal tubules, and the collecting dot. Overall, you find that water is actually being removed from the urine and reabsorbed into the water. Salt is also removed, and in that process, there is water and salt reabsorption within the nephron. Very, very important. While drugs and other toxins are actively transported into the urine to be cleared. So tubular reabsorption, we have 99% of water that is being reabsorbed. 99.5% of sodium is reabsorbed. Urea, 50% is reabsorbed, while phenol, 0% is not absorbed. For tubular reabsorption is by passive division, by primary active transport, which is sodium, and then secondary active transport, where we actually, for sugar and amino acid, they are actively transported. So we want to look at tubular reabsorption microscopically. What is actually happening at that point where you have active transport? What is actually involved? Tubular reabsorption is a function of the epithelial cell making up the tubules. You know, there are tubes, there are epithelial cells there. And of course, within the cells, we are familiar with the sodium sodium potassium ATPase pump that pumps. You can see it pumps sodium from the lumen. The lumen is within the tubules, that's within the urine. It pumps sodium out and bring in potassium. That's the process of active transport. Then chlorides are pumped out from the urine. Water are pumped out because of the movement. You know, we should understand that each time, wherever sodium goes to, chloride goes to, and water goes there. That is the philosophy, and that's the philosophy around this. Wherever sodium moves to, chloride moves there. Of course, water will move there. But this is aided for the two ions, sodium and potassium. Of course, the sodium potassium ATPase within the epithelial cells is at work. Let us look at the renin angiotensin aldosterone system. They stimulate sodium reabsorption in the distal tubule and collecting dot. That is where this one actually is for. Also remember that the antidiuretic hormone also promote sodium reabsorption at the distal tubule. That is why when we have when we begin to use angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor like lisinopril, we begin to look at look at potassium and sodium level within the bone. We monitor them because when we begin to use the ACEIs and the ARBs, we have to monitor our potassium and our sodium level, because if renin, angiotensin, aldosterone actually cause reabsorption of sodium, if you block their action, that means sodium will not be reabsorbed. That means sodium will be eliminated from the system. That means we will have a condition of hyponatremia within the body and hypokalemia. You understand? Because there is no reabsorption of sodium into the body. And if the renin, angiotensin, aldosterone system becomes to fire very high, maybe because of maybe some cancerous or benign tumor within the adrenal system or the renal system, and it begins to become hyperactive, there will be hyper increase in sodium reabsorption, and definitely you will have high amount of sodium within the body, where we have hypernatremia, and then which will now maybe reverse cause hypokalemia. That is the balances when we begin to look at those drugs vis-a-vis the renal system. So I just want to you to appreciate this schematic diagram where we have the juxtaglomerular apparatus. You see the renin affects and causes transformation of angiotensin to angiotensin 1, and then angiotensin 2, and angiotensin, which is a potent vasoconstrictor on the cortex. It helps, this increases vascular contraction. And I said ACEIs, as I already said before, will cause loss of salt and also loss of water. And that is why a long time use of ACEIs now, we begin to look at it, because there's a school of thought that says the ACEIs are renal protective. But with the current findings now, when there is so much loss of water as a result of the use of the ACEIs, because definitely when you use the ACEIs now, the angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, they will block reabsorption of water at the distal and the collecting tubules. Definitely there will be much water loss. And when there is much water loss, there is dehydration. And of course, that is not good for the kidney, because where there is no water in the kidney, it gives chance for damages. Yes, it causes damage. And it, of course, this can actually, when there is already an underlying kidney condition, and then there is an aggressive use of the ACEIs, of course, you could actually aggravate the condition of the kidney. And that's where the pharmaceutical care aspect has to come in, where the patient begins to take drugs. Even in community practice, we need to have that tendency to monitor our patients as they come, especially those ones that are on ARBs, they are ACEIs, monitor their potassium and sodium level. Send them to the lab to be checked. And also look at their hydration status. Yes, are they dehydrated? Because before you know it, as they continue to use, you begin to see that they become dehydrated over time. Of course, the second point there is the atrial peptide also inhibits sodium reabsorption. Osmotic diuretics, of course, are not reabsorbed within the system. Glucose and amino acids are reabsorbed by secondary active transport. I've said that they are actively transported across the apical cell membrane of the epithelial cell. Their active transport depends on the sodium gradient across the membrane. Other steps are so. Sodium is actually very important for the transport a lot of things, because of the sodium potassium ATPase mechanism that is actually involved in at the epithelial cell level. And I was just trying to look at a graph of glucose reabsorption. Has a tubular maximum You know, when glucose is being reabsorbed, it gets to a point, as you can see, it flattens out. When it gets to this point, you know, there is a threshold for reabsorption of glucose. So when it gets there, the rest are filtered out and excreted from the body. There's, unlike sodium, which there can be a continuous reabsorption, and that is why at times people may die, go into fetal condition because of severe hyperkalemia or severe hypernatremia. Tubular reabsorption, the culprits there are proton, tubular secretion, which we've already said, it actually means that the substance is secreted from the blood into the urine and is excreted out. So potassium is implicated, but protons are implicated there, and organic ions. So in potassium secretion, of course, we also have the potassium ATPase that is there. It's same thing like sodium, but you will see potassium coming in here into the urine. And of course, as I said before, when there is a condition that affects sodium reabsorption, it will affect potassium secretion, which can actually lead to hyperkalemia within the system. So dual control of the aldosterone system, aldosterone secretion, increased aldosterone secretion. What causes it is that if there is increase in plasma potassium, aldosterone will be increased, it will be secreted. Increased plasma potassium will cause an increase in aldosterone secretion. And aldosterone secretion causes potassium reabsorption and water retention. You understand? So also a fall in sodium will cause aldosterone to be secreted, which will cause reabsorption of sodium. So if you have not been taking salt, the tendency is that your aldosterone system will cause aldosterone to increase, because if it increases now, it will reabsorb sodium from urine so that you pass less sodium out of the body, so that the body aspect of it, and it now has to do with when, that has a place to do with when you talk about salt moderation in hypertension. There are cases where some people will be advised, don't ever use salt. Of course, if you don't ever use salt, the tendency is that you are creating a condition of hyperkalemia, because if there is a fall in sodium, of course, there is an increase in aldosterone secretion. And if there is no sodium, potassium will remain in the body, and before you know it, it will increase, because it's only when sodium comes into the body that potassium can leave, so that there will be a balance. Because you are taking in food, you are taking in vegetables which are high in potassium. They need to be, released by the active transport system of the sodium potassium ATPase. But if you are not taking sodium, the tendency is that the potassium will continue to accumulate, and before you know it, a condition of hyperkalemia will set in, and of course it has its own peculiar problem. So increase in aldosterone secretion will increase tubular potassium secretion, which will cause increased urinary potassium secretion. Yes, because increase in aldosterone will cause reabsorption of sodium and excretion of potassium. That's what this means. You can see increase in potassium, increase in tubular sodium reabsorption. You see, don't get confused, it's a bit interplay, but the principles are there. When sodium is reabsorbed, potassium is secreted from the blood. If sodium is not reabsorbed, potassium remains there. The problem is that the sources of potassium are high. We are a vegetarian culture in Nigeria. We eat a lot of vegetable, and there is high quantity of potassium in it. We eat fruits like banana, they are high. but it needs to be balanced because it needs to be secreted by the active reabsorption of sodium. So if sodium is moving in, potassium needs to move out. But where there is a problem, I said before, when you begin to tell people don't take salt, it will affect that balance. You understand? So moderate salt use have been shown to balance this system so that you don't say you are trying to treat hypertension, but in the aspect denying your client salt intake, not thinking about you trying to set in hyperkalemia within the system. So we need to take this into consideration. So reabsorption in the proximal tubules, in summary, you have your glucose and amino acid are reabsorbed, 65% of filtered sodium are reabsorbed, other electrolytes, 65% of water are reabsorbed, 50% of urea are reabsorbed. I've all said it. All filtered potassium. So now secretion in the proximal tubules. Summary. Of course, I said proton secretion for acid-base regulation. Organic ions are secreted. At the distal tubules, you have sodium controlled by aldosterone. Chloride follows passively. And then a variable water controlled by vasopressin. So you can see two of these hormones that are actually playing their part effectively or playing their part in what do you call it? At the distal tubules of the nephron. Of course, secretion at the distal tubules, you have proton, you have potassium that is being controlled by aldosterone. Within the collecting dot, we have water, variable water reabsorption controlled by vasopressin, that's the antidiuretic hormone. We have the variable proton secretion for acid-base balance. Of course, the regulation of urine concentration. We have what we call the medullary countercurrent system. It's not big. And others, the vasopressin. I've already told you, vasopressin causes water reabsorption. It concentrates the urine. Is it not so? Yes. The countercurrent system has to do with the sodium potassium ATPase. Yes, where the movement between potassium and sodium, which actually affects water movement too, because we should know that where potassium moves to water, water will follow there, and chloride will go there. Why potassium will move in the opposite direction? That is what you call the medullary countercurrent system. And the medullary countercurrent system has is osmotic gradient established by the long loop of Henle. Of course, I told you when potassium moves, water will move by osmosis by itself. And it's, of course, this system is around the loop of Henle, both the descending loop and the ascending loop. The descending loop is highly permeable to water. No active sodium transport occurs in the descending loop. While in the ascending loop, actively pumps sodium out of the tubules to the surrounding interstitium, and it is impermeable with water. You see, while the descending is permeable to water, the ascending is impermeable to water. Now the countercurrent makes the osmotic gradient, as I was explaining. You can see sodium by active transport, the one with the dark, they are coming out from the, then you now see passive water movement. Water will now move out to, because sodium is actually moving. That is the countercurrent movement. Sodium is actually moved by active transport, but water, of course, by some level of osmosis and passive diffusion system. Osmotic gradient concentrates the urine when vasopressin, antidiuretic, is present. I've already told you, vasopressin from the pituitary gland, when it acts on the distal tubule and the collecting tubules, what happens is that it causes reabsorption of water and the urine becomes concentrated. That's what I'm trying us to see. You see, as you go on, the pores are open, sodium leaves, water leaves, the urine becomes concentrated. That's why at times when you see concentrated urine, at times it's because of some state of dehydration. That's why at times it's not always good to be too dehydrated, because this system is activated where there is some high level of dehydration. When vasopressin is absent, there is dilute urine. I've already established that. We've already explained that, because there is no reabsorption of water. That means water can freely go outside into the collecting and then pass out. So, having said all this and done, of course, in acute renal failure, there is always a sudden onset. It's rapid reduction in urine output. Immediately before you know it, you begin to see there is you don't pass urine. You don't pass urine. I thought before you know it, it's difficult to pass urine. That is an acute onset, but usually it's reversible. But of course, we now have the chronic, progressive, and irreversible. Of course, as a result of comorbidity, most especially hypertension and diabetes, are prime proponents of chronic kidney diseases. Most of the time, patients that come down with chronic kidneys, other patients that have not been able to control their hypertension over years, well, or patients that have a comorbidity of hypertension and diabetes. Also, patients that may have conditions of congestive heart failure, where enough blood does not get to the kidney for proper function. So up to 75% function can be lost before it is noticeable. Well, that is that bad. So how do we keep our kidney healthy? Hello, am I still heard by everybody? I've been talking.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. We can.
All right. All right. On a final note, I'll soon round up. How do we keep our kidneys healthy? I call it the 8 golden rules. Number 1, keep fit and active. Yes. Regardless of your profession, try and find time to keep fit and active. Eat healthy food to ensure good nutrition and good control of your blood sugar. Very important, especially those who have a history of history of diabetes mellitus within the family or within relatives, close or even extended. It's important we check and control our blood sugar. Monitor our blood pressure regularly, very important. Eat healthy food and check our weight. Eat healthy food and check our weight. Maintain a healthy fluid intake, very important. We should not smoke. Do not take over-the-counter medicine on a regular basis, especially when not prescribed by or recommended by a pharmacist. Yes, very important. Then finally, always we should ask our pharmacist in doubt of the effect of medication on the kidney. So I ask you, do you have diabetes? Do you have hypertension? Are you overweight? One of your parents or your other family members suffer from kidney disease? You come from an ethnic group with high risk? Ask yourself. It's important you ask yourself and begin to take preliminary measures. Thank you, and God bless us.
Thank you very much, sir. That was a very, very, very interesting one. I must commend your slides. They are something else. Like, they had a way of keeping one's eyes glued to the screen. Thank you very much.
Thank you very much.
Yes, thank you. It was a good one. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Okay,
very much.
I know we may likely have questions. Before we proceed, let me just, like I said, I wouldn't be able to call everyone's name, but just know that if you're in this room, you are highly recognized, respected and appreciated for being here. Let me quickly acknowledge the presence of the Deputy National Coordinator for the Nephrology Pharmacist of Nigerian Group, Dr. Solomon Wafuro. I think I saw Dr. Obiajuru Wayemeru, the CPAN National Finance Officer too. And I think I also cited Dr. Motiat Olulawal, the CPAN National Secretary. Welcome, sir. Welcome. Okay, so we are going into the question session and I'll be opening the floor myself. Yes, I have that privilege being the moderator. Thank you. So I wanted to ask, when you said one can comfortably live on one healthy kidney and still enjoy his or her life, I was wondering, assuming one kidney is no more, maybe because the person transplanted it to someone else who needed it or for whatever reason, would you say that that remaining functional one is being overworked at any point in time? Or does it still take the pressure and manage it and has a way of absorbing it without, without causing any, posing any risk or tendency for a breakdown? Secondly, when you said the old kidneys are not removed, like the damaged kidneys that are not removed, like I was trying to understand it. You meant during transplant, they don't actually remove the bad one entirely. They superimpose the good one onto that bad one. I would like you to throw more light on that. So that's all I have. I don't know if you.
Okay, can I answer that?
Okay. If anybody has questions, just put your hand up while he answers mine. Thank you very much.
Okay. The first question was can I remember? You said the one was why superimpose?
Yeah, that's the second one. Yeah, when you said that the old and the damaged kidneys are not removed.
Okay, the first one was what?
The first one was when one is just living on one healthy kidney alone.
Okay. All right, yes. Okay, now, okay, I guess it's one kidney. Now, you see, the kidney is part of what you call the general hemostatic system, balancing of, of flow. You understand? The flow of the blood into the kidney is regulated. You understand? So when it's flowing into the kidney, it's regulated. And the both kidneys, they do the same thing. Now, if one kidney is taken, it doesn't mean that more blood will, your blood now is double in the body. It's the same quantity of blood you have. Now, what happens is that the rate of flow into the kidney is still the same. The glomerular filtration rate, in spite of you are having one kidney, is still the same as if you are having two kidneys. You understand? The glomerular filtration rate, if it is 7 mils per minute for filtration, while you have two kidneys, it will remain 7 mils per minute when one kidney is functioning instead of two. So there is no aspect of it being overloaded because the workings and the rate of filtration still remains the same. It's not that the blood is now pumping higher, because if you have one kidney, your heart rate is still pumping at the same rate. The amount of blood that is still pumped into that renal system is not doubled. You understand what I'm saying? So there is a rearrangement, there's a alignment of everything. So it checks itself and then it's being used. Now, okay, yes. So that's that. For the kidney transplant, normally when there is kidney damage, that means the nephron is not working well. There is no filtration taking place. It doesn't mean that the kidney cannot remain there. You understand? Most often than not, when they do transplant, there is a bypass from the old kidney and they insert the new, using the same urethra, because it is the same urethra that you are going to use. You're using the same urethra down into the bladder through the, ureter, down into the bladder, down into the urethra and where the urine passes out. So the tendency of cutting it off does not add anything or take anything away from the person. You understand? Because it's still there. When the person is just that it's not working well, it's just like you have a car. You understand? You have a car and it's not working well, you park it somewhere. You use another car. You understand? So the issue of actually cutting it off and bringing another one back, because it is the same urethra. As I showed you before, I don't know whether I have the slide. Yeah, you find out that the kidney is connected to the bladder via the long drainage pipe, which is the ureter, and is one. They bringing another kidney to you doesn't mean they will cut a ureter and stay attached. It's that same ureter. So that's why they superimpose that on it. I don't know whether I actually answered both questions very well.
Thank you very much, sir. Thank you so much, sir. Dr. Solomon Wafuru, you have the floor.
So the hands are up.
Thank you so much, my amiable moderator. You did very well. It's just like you've been talking like you read mass communication. I don't know whether you practice journalism equally. Then Dr. Polycarp, wonderful, wonderful, wonderful. And nephrology is really doing us proud. That is good at nephrology has woken up and it's very good one. And before I make some contributions, I would like us to have, maybe I'm putting this thing directly to the academic there, Dr. Polycarp. Yes. After this presentation, we should do a multi-center research. Let us try to know the level of risk and assessment and management of kidney-related issue within the southern region. You are in New York, I can take that of FMC Owerri, why you design that of your teaching hospital. Some other people will do that of JOS. It will be a very big, either it's a horizontal research or vertical, or anyone who want to call it. Then within the next 2 or 3 months, let's have a paper that will back up this presentation. It will be published in our own journal, and Journal of Nigerian Clinical Pharmacy and the Therapeutics, or even in another international journal. It will do a lot of whatever. And let it be like we have actually done something and have reflected in research that really this is happening. And secondly, it looks like just like when the moderator was asking, the person can successfully stay with one kidney. It's only when the risks are eliminated. It shouldn't be that maybe I have one kidney, I can still go back and be doing what I'm doing with a double kidney and nothing will happen. The kidney might still go into failing, but equally still fail. So it's a problem. And I see it based on some, because I've started a work on kidney research, I seem to see that ladies or females suffer it so much. I begin to wonder. It seems like maybe our ladies are having a problem, a poor related lifestyle conditions. I begin to wonder, is that they don't take a lot of fluid? Because we know every average lady don't want to take water. They prefer taking a colored drinks. Even all these energy drinks that are killing people all the while, you see them becoming fearless. Give me fearless, give me fearless, give me all these things. All those things. They thought all these things maybe is a way of good way of life. Why all those things have way of affecting the kidney one way or the other? Putting the kidney high serious way of dehydration, and it's not being hydrated, it becomes another issue. Then pharmacologically, there are a lot of drugs that are making inroads now. Well, it is true that chronic is non-reversible. But I want to tell you that some drugs are beginning to give us hope, reversing a condition we might believe is a chronic condition coming to normalcy. I know some, maybe that one will do it where I will be able to bring something about that maybe much later, thereabout. See, some people for the past 7 years being detoxified very well, being ascertained that is a CKD, and being on that respective different drug formulations. The kidney now came back to normal, no transplant, no dialysis. And now they are going very well. Nothing has actually happened to the kidney for the past 7 years. So it is a very good one. Even a plant that I worked on, they call Tapinanthus babuensis. I tried it on some people, and there are a lot of promising something coming up. I'm talking about natural product research and co. So there is definitely a light along the tunnel. And secondly, our way of life, we equally have to do something about it. And there are many drugs that we take, which we believe is ordinary drug that will not do anything to you. At the end of the day, begin to build a lot of pressure in your kidney ducts, beginning to predispose in the release of your creatinine in the blood, beginning to cause more problem to you. So it is a wonderful one. So as we keep our kidney healthy, we still have to go deep, bring our brain together for us to make a paper, a very strong paper on this, that we penetrate the deeper concepts of the nephrologist to know that if pharmacists are actually taking this as a specialty, that there will be a better collaboration for the research to help our teeming patient to survive. Thank you, and God bless all of us as nephrology is waking up.
Thank you very much, Dr. Wafu.
Okay, so we have some questions on the floor. Please, if you have any more questions, you can raise your hand or you could send in a chat. So we have a question from Fam Ngozi Nzewasi. She asks, sir, with your vast knowledge on the kidneys, could you please specify the types of food readily available here in Nigeria to assist in kidney protection, and also the main classes of drugs that should be avoided in kidney failure? You have the floor, sir, Dr. Polika.
Drugs that should be avoided in kidney failure.
Yeah, drugs that should be avoided in kidney failure. Then foods that are nephroprotective, if I may say that, foods that could protect our kidneys or like improve the health of our kidneys. Readily available foods.
Okay. Yes. There are foods that are generally very high in potassium. Well, first and foremost, the baseline condition of your kidney is a factor, because every food we take, every drug we take will pass through the kidney for filtration and elimination and excretion from the body. So for a kidney that is very healthy, most of the foods that you eat will not really have an issue, except foods that are very, very high in potassium. Why I always say very high in potassium is that when potassium is very high in the body, the tendency is that, as I already told you, at the level of the nephron, there is tubular reabsorption of sodium, which causes elimination of, elimination of potassium in the body. So if there is an issue of sodium not being reabsorbed at the tubules, and you continuously begin to take fruits that are high in potassium, then the tendency is that individual will begin to come down with hyperloremia, which will aggravate the condition of the kidney. Now, we have been observing there is a high increase in kidney diseases here in Nigeria now. You hear somebody, you tell it, what happened? He has a kidney problem. You will find out that you will not rule out the fact that they must have had some level of damages, you understand, within the kidney. And then you now begin to take certain foods, especially us in this region that are we take a lot of vegetables. And vegetables, you know, are very high in potassium. I know there is, everybody wants to go vegetable because but still there is this risk there. And then we find out that people that are hypertensive, drugs such as the angiotensin receptor blockers, angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor, the lisinopril, the losartan, belonging to those category, even the talmisartan, you have to do your electrolyte, urea, creatinine, this thing, to actually check for electrolyte balances when you monitor the electrolyte when you are taking those drugs. Because number one, angiotensin 2 causes reabsorption of sodium and water. Is it also from the urine, so that sodium is not eliminated? Is it also? So it now helps to balance potassium. So when we now start taking angiotensin converting enzyme inhibitor like lisinopril or losartan, in those categories, they will block the action of this angiotensin. They suppress renin production, which will now prevent sodium reabsorption. So sodium will not be reabsorbed from the urine. So you now have a condition of hyponatremia in the body and hyponatremia. So over time, when you don't monitor that patient on this, you tend to see, number one, the patient will be dehydrated on this drug. And we've always been hearing that ACIs and ARBs are renal protective, but research have actually shown because of this, you find out that when patients begin to take those kind of drugs, you need to monitor them. The patients that are on sulfonamides, our Septrin, at those times, our Septrin, they are actually toxic to the kidney. So, and there are also other drugs that we need to check up. I cannot give you all of the drugs here. When you go read about it, there are so many. But the important thing is that what is the baseline condition of the kidney of that patient at ground zero? If that patient already has a compromised kidney, definitely for most drugs that patient takes, it has to be. And that is why we do dosage adjustment during the drug administration in renal patients. You adjust a lot of these dosages of drugs so that, because elimination has been compromised. You understand? So that is what I have to say for that question.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. We have another question. Dr. Magnus is asking, what could be responsible for hypochloremia in non-diabetic patients? No history of diarrhea, vomiting, no hypernatremia, and no hyperkalemia. BP normal, but there is fever, edema, hand tremor, and pH is slightly alkaline, 8.4.
Hypochloremia, is it also?
Yes, hypo. What could be responsible for hypochloremia in non-diabetic patient?
All right, non-diabetic. Now, I've already told you that at the level of the distal tubule and the collecting dot, the antidiuretic hormone and aldosterone, at that point, they causes reabsorption of potassium. And wherever potassium goes to, there chlorine will go to. So definitely that's what causes the balance. And you have chlorine within the system, and you have water reabsorption within the system. Now, when there is a problem at the level of there is deficiency of antidiuretic hormone, sodium is not reabsorbed. Definitely, what do you call it? Chlorine will not move where potassium. That means chlorine too will be eliminated. That means we'll have a condition of hypochloremia within the body. So deficiency and in vasopressin, maybe there is a malignancy at the pituitary gland or the hypothalamus that has actually affected the release of the hormone vasopressin from the central nervous system that could cause reabsorption of sodium that will invariably causes chlorine to move in that direction. So that's one of the problems. Also, you may have a malignancy at the level of the adrenal gland, which is almost on top of the kidney. In conditions like pheochromocytoma, you may have conditions like that that will actually affect the renin, angiotensin, and aldosterone the RAS system. Now, if it affects two, the RAS system also causes reabsorption of sodium. So if there's a problem there and there's no reabsorption of sodium, definitely there is a condition of hyponatremia, which also will bring about condition of hypochloremia. So that person should actually go and do some hormonal level tests to find out the level of production of aldosterone and also the level of production of the, what do you call it? The vasopressin, or you call it the antidiuretic hormone. That's what actually happens where the person is not diabetic, a non-diabetic person. Look at also at the urine to find out, is the urine very dilute? If it's a very dilute and there is polyuria, we can be looking at what do you call it, diabetes insipidus, which is also a result of the deficiency of vasopressin, also called antidiuretic hormone. That is what I could actually say concerning that patient.
Okay, thank you very much, sir. Okay, from a woman is asking, for patients on ARBs and ACAIs, how often should their electrolytes be checked?
Monthly.
Okay.
That one is straight. You check it monthly because most of these ARBs and they are given daily. You know, they are given daily once a day. So an average of once a month you do your electrolyte checks. It's always very good. And also look at their hydration rate, because definitely there will be at times they will pass out water. It's not that they are diabetic. At times because when there is a blockade at the RAS system, of course, definitely you will have you will not have sodium reabsorption. So water will flow along and the person may pass more of urine. So you look at their hydration rate. So the tendency is that you tell them to take more of water so that the kidney is not left dry, because it could actually aggravate the condition of the kidney. Because if you leave the patient continuously not checking for the hydration rate, not looking at the potassium and sodium and other electrolyte balances within the system, over time, some level of renal insufficiency will set in. Yes. And it has been one of those things that we have overlooked over time, because we have agreed that ACIs are renal protective because they reduce proteinuria. You understand? But the important thing is that one very good thing about the ACIs and the ARB is that they help to reduce the right ventricular hypertrophy. Those one with the is an established advantage of using. But recently, because of the RAS system, ACIs has to be washed and be monitored for your potassium, and the tendency of causing hyperkalemia is very high. That's the ACIs and the ARBs. So we need to watch it. If we watch it at times, we can reduce the dose. If the blood pressure has been put under a well-controlled value, there can be dose reduction so that the amount of drug going into the system can be reduced. Thank you very much.
Well, thank you so much, sir. The night is fast spent. Thank you so much. There are no more questions and there's no hand up. In the absence of hand raising and questions, I think we could call it a night here. I just want to thank each and every one of us for staying here with us, for coming out, for nephrologists, nephrology pharmacists of Nigeria. Thank you for showing up for us. Thank you so much for being here. Thank you, Dr. Polycarp. You really did.
Very much.
We appreciate you. Good night, everyone. We'll be calling on you again, and we hope you'll answer when we call you. Thank you. Good night. God bless.